Bill Maher's thinking about quitting his show because he's tired and sort of bored of talking about Trump. And while I'm not quitting my show, no worries, I understand the sentiment of just thinking, 4 years of this. But in a discussion with actress Jane Fonda, a lot of really interesting things came up, that being one of them that I want to play for you. But then also just what do we feel about extremism in the country? And something I bring up a lot is, how do we know which side has the bigger extremism problem? Because I argue the MAGA is the worst manifestation of extremism in positions of power. People disagree with me, but Jane Fonda, without using the exact language I do, taps into that in arguing with Bill Maher, which I think is really interesting. So let's dive into this. First, Bill Maher's announcement that he's considering quitting his show.
That's a big doobie.
That's what Mrs. Arnold Palmer said.
Oh. Yeah, I know. Oh, well.
The way we just both had that same thought, like,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah,
It's hard to believe.
I'm shitting my pants.
It's hard to believe.
I mean, I may quit because I don't want to do another. I did Trump. I did all the Trump stuff before anybody. I called him a con man before anybody. He's a mafia boss. I was the one who said he wasn't going to concede the election. I've done it. I've seen this fucking...
Well, then how come he's so hostile to Jimmy Kimmel and not to you?
He's very hostile to me. He tweets about me every week.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes. Every week he accidentally watches my show and then low ratings loser.
Oh, well, yeah.
But, I mean, I'm bored with it. I mean...
So find a new thing to do and not do Trump. Do something else.
The show is the politics.
I know,
there's no other thing than...
Yeah, that's a good point. You can weave in other things to political discussions, but if you're covering American politics and Trump's the president, you can't avoid the Trump fatigue. But I know different people approach politics differently, and not everyone feels that they're trying to implement change. It's more just a job for them. For me, because it's so much about a mission, it feels like the worse things get, the more I would need to do this, right? And so I would never consider, because of how fatiguing it is to deal with Trump every day, abandoning such a platform. And in his case, it's an even larger platform. But again, I sympathize with just 4 more years of this, but I don't sympathize with, I've done it all with Trump. It's not about checking boxes of covering Trump in every way that you can and then being like, well, now it's going to be repetitive, so I give up. No, we got to keep getting the word out and talking about such a relevant thing. Then they get into a different topic, and this is where it gets really interesting. While you're watching, please do click the subscribe button.
Because the other part of the coalition are people who, they don't really like him that much. They just think the far left has gone so nutty on so many issues.
That's what they're being told.
That's what
by people like you.
Because it's true. You think the far left does nothing crazy?
Oh, I'm sure they do.
Oh, well then...
But I don't know, who is the far left? What do you mean when you say far left?
I mean, I could give you a million examples.
Yeah, well, give me one.
Okay, the NAACP...
You think the NAACP is far left?
Could I finish my sentence?
Yes.
You asked me for an example.
Yeah.
The NAACP last year issued a travel advisory. That's like the State Department does to go to, I'm sure when you went to Vietnam, they were advising you not to. There's a war on it.
I didn't talk to them. I don't have no...
I know, but a travel advisory.
Yeah.
Today we have them for very dangerous countries.
Yeah.
Don't go to North Korea. Don't go to Iran.
Yeah.
You know where they issued a travel advisory for black people not to go?
Yeah.
Florida. Every day there's stories like that that just makes people roll their eyes and go, are you people nuts? Even if they don't matter that much, I don't think one person listened to this and thought, I can't go to Florida. But they just suggest something to the average person, which I completely understand, which is, wow, do you people ever find anything that's ridiculous? You really think men can get pregnant? That kind of stuff. And I understand that a trans woman can get pregnant. That's different than a man getting pregnant. And the way they
He's so discombobulated on that. I get that they're drinking and smoking and stuff, so you can maybe more easily mix up your words, but he proves why that's just such a ridiculous talking point. No one's saying that biological males, people who were born biologically the sex of male, can give birth. It's that whenever someone transitions and they were born biologically female, but then they, in their gender identity, not that their biology is not changing, but their gender identity, they then identify as a man, then a trans man, still having the biology of a biological female, has the ability to give birth if they, are able to. And okay, is it really, why has this become such a thing? We get it, right? No one's making some big bombastic claim about sex is no longer a thing, biological sex isn't a thing. It's just the way people are identifying themselves. Okay, not that hard to understand, but this interaction is really interesting.
Insist on blurring that line as if that's some sort of reasonable social cause, as opposed to just being for having full rights, respect, and protection for trans people. We get that.
So I've never heard about men getting pregnant. I've never heard about this argument. It must be some part of what you call the far left that is so minuscule that I, who am...
No, Jane.
What?
It's not minuscule, and I'm sorry, you can't throw this back on us. I assume it's because you are locked into media that just never...
Okay. The whole can men get pregnant thing, I don't know if it is, but it should be a minuscule, non-existent argument because it's literally just a semantic argument. It's literally just, are we defining the words differently? Are we admitting that, are we willing to say, okay, trans man, you're trans man, right? You're identifying as a man. All right, great. And we'll refer to you as such. Is that something that you're willing to do? And if so, the whole conversation is over and we don't have to keep debating. We don't have to scream, can't be define a man. We just spend so much time on this ridiculous stuff. And Jane Fonda gets that in this really casual way. She's like, I don't really know about this. And you'll see in a later clip, I think, she just goes, I just want healthcare and stuff like that. Yes. She's like, I'm just... whatever side wants to do actual meaningful policy things and not scream about these ridiculous cultural things, that's what I'm thinking about.
I'm for the team that understands that everybody should have the same opportunities, that everybody should be able to attain a middle-class life.
That's right.
That...
yes, that's not what we're talking about.
Childcare should be... this isn't far left.
No, that isn't. It's interesting. The Democratic politicians generally in this country are not far left. They don't stand up to the crazy when they hear it. That's true. But they themselves, after 2020, a big rallying cry was defund the police. You remember that?
Yeah, I was critical of that.
Okay. And so were most Democratic politicians.
All right, and I'm gonna continue on respond to that point after this.
The Republicans tried to catch the Democrats with this, and they put this on, they brought it up in Congress. Yeah. And all the Democrats voted against it. The Democratic politicians were not for defunding the police. It's that radical fringe that has captured a lot of the media, academia, some of these cultural institutions that are not liberal anymore by my...
Okay, so that's what I want to react to. There's two things. There really are some people who wield power within, quote unquote, our side. I hate that framework that we break up the country to two sides, and then anyone who's left of that line is your side, anyone right of that line is your side. And everyone gets upset with that because, of course, right of the center line, if you go far enough, are fascists, right? And a lot of just moderate Republicans wouldn't want to be on the side of fascists. And so I try to specify what we're talking about within this oversimplified two-sided framework. And the way that I do it is by saying, okay, if we're talking about politics, then presumably most relevantly are people in positions of power in politics. And so because politicians and those who have been elected by enough people to definitionally be relevant in the epicenters of power, if we focus on those people, clearly they're definitely representative of a real phenomenon. Unlike, you can't tell if something went viral on social media, how relevant it is. Because in a country this size, you can find people being crazy about everything. But if you do look at people wielding power, that's where you get a pretty simple two-sided comparison with the parties. And while both are really, really flawed, if you want to make the type of change that Jane Fonda is talking about, or that Bill Maher advocates there in agreement with Fonda, if you have the principles that I have, and you want to implement policy change that's really consequential, there's really only one party that you have any shot of doing it within. And so in that sense, I'm a part of that party, understanding how flawed many of the individuals in it are and the whole incentive structure is. But it's hard for people to look past or to engage in such an analysis because they can't look past the really irritating people on social media on the left. But if you simplify it down to my analysis, you quickly go, okay, so clearly I can't operate within the Republican Party because extremism isn't just online on the right. It's actually getting up to positions of power to the tip top, Donald Trump. Someone who is so extreme, he tried to illegally stay in power when he lost that election in 2020, as one example. Whereas you're not seeing extremism get to positions of power in the Democratic Party to the same extent, something I repeat a bunch of times because I think it helps people sort of put a filter on to understand what they should find relevant and what maybe isn't in their political analysis. Does it mean that people with big social media followings who identify as on the left or people in different institutions in the country aren't relevant at all and shouldn't be criticized when they go too far on things or whatever? No. It's just that it's hard to quickly explain a political framework that helps us have answers as to how we should engage in our political system and which sets of political leaders are better than the others, not perfect, but better, when you're trying to analyze this just massive, gargantuous set of data points, right? Some that you don't know how much you should even be judging. So that's my request to you, is to compare those two things and you get a quicker answer. And then we can keep grappling over in social media bubbles and in different institutions about what is too far left on things or what is too extreme on things to the right or to the left. But don't let people convince you that the Democratic Party or the people in positions of power have succumbed to extremism equally. And so, both suck and there's no chance we can make progress through one of them. Or don't let that be the justification to then go vote Republican, which a lot of people do. They say cultural things they consider to be too far left is why I vote Republican, when given what I just explained to you, that doesn't make any sense. Okay, here's Bill Maher.
Old school liberalism. The ACLU was all about free speech.
Oh, sorry. This is the clip I was just playing for you. You can cut out of that, Jane. Let me go to the final one I have for you.
That is why they do it, because...
But you know what I feel? I feel like you're taking a problem that exists. There is somewhere some pretty dismissible and, far left thing, and you're making it a big issue, and I don't think it is.
This is the argument people say, and my answer to that is, I don't think you know. You're saying I don't know. I think you don't know how pervasive some of this stuff is. And you're right. Many schools, it's just like school was sort of in our day. I talk to parents, and some of them say that, but there's also undeniable. You can see, like, you don't need a filter of any sort of media to see teachers who are making TikToks and telling you about how they conduct their class and so forth.
Exactly. That proves my point right there too. And it's a tough balance because it's not like people who represent themselves on social media are fake people, but it's that if one teacher says they said something funky in class about gender or something, that one teacher is going to go so viral because of the way that engagement drives viral content. And then that can become a story that is projected onto the entire Democratic Party or onto anyone who identifies as left of center and distracts from much more consequential, systemic, and power-oriented conversations. And that's what I think Bill Maher is guilty of, putting too much emphasis. And this is really abstract. I've said it before in criticizing him. It's a very vague, tough to exactly quantify criticism. But one of the ways that you allow for less relevant things to become what people are focused on, like the trans bathroom thing, it wasn't an issue until right-wing politicians pretended like it was and made an issue. And then all of these Republican voters then vote for Republicans who then cut taxes for wealthy folks and don't implement policies that benefit those voters, but they're able to keep doing it because of these things they're so focused on. And one of the things that helps with that are the Bill Mahers of the world who agree with the premise that the coalition of too far left people that he says exist is as powerful and relevant as MAGA believes them to be. And when you accept that premise, then a lot of their voting patterns they feel are justified. So I try to make sure people understand, wait. Let's just first, if you agree of the two parties, the one that you're going to be voting within and making change within and trying to win primaries within, and you have a better chance of making actual policies, seeing them implemented within, is the Democratic Party, given a long history of how we got here. Then let's talk about what within that is too conservative, too to the left, too centrist, whatever. Let's go there. But if you're still trying to figure out, should I be voting for Republicans because of my perception about the far left, then that's where you have to make sure people get the framework that I'm talking about. And a large portion of the country has been convinced that because of trans bathroom stuff, which is not, first of all, too far left, given that I've explained that issue to you before, and the Republican approach to it leads to really bad outcomes. But an issue like that one drives a lot of people to then go vote for Republicans, which doesn't make any sense given their own interests. Let me know all your thoughts in the comments. I gave you mine. Sheesh. And support the show, get the Members Only Bonus Show by clicking that join button below.